Where do you stand on the debate over rectangular traffic patterns or curve patterns? This is an age-old question that I bet most of you have never even considered. Stick around as we cover the differences, good and bad, of both styles of traffic patterns. Fighter guys fly curve patterns. Rectangular patterns are for bomber pilots. Hi, I'm Scott Purdue, and today on Flywire, we're going to talk about the traffic pattern final turn. Full disclosure, I'm a fighter guy, even though I may not look like it much anymore. And frankly, I prefer curve patterns, even in high-winged airplanes. Rectangular patterns are what folks have been flying in GA for decades. Let's face it, it slows down the decisions, all the decisions you have to make. And heck, that's about the chief benefit of a square pattern, the way I see it. It usually drives the pilot into a much larger traffic pattern, making it harder to judge descent rates, the effect of winds on the pattern, turn rates and radii, and forget it if you have an engine failure in the pattern. Better to plan on just landing short. The curve pattern, on the other hand, can be flown tighter. You can judge what the winds are doing to your turn rate and radius dynamically, and whether the descent is too steep or too shallow. It's easier to see the changes in that dynamic turn and make the required corrections very easily and see what the impact is. So come along with me as we delve into this pattern controversy that you probably didn't even know existed. Here we have the rectangular pattern. Downwind spacing looks just fine, but as we can see with this pattern, it lends itself to overflying turns. The further out we are, the harder it is to see where to turn. Since we've got a little bit of time, let's look at the different pattern graphics. First is the FAA standard rectangular pattern. The next pattern is from a World War II T6 student book. As you can see, it was a rectangular pattern as well. And you know, I've got to admit it that the Navy probably invented the curved final turn because they were doing it in World War II. Probably something to do with landing on little bitty carriers. I don't know. But as we approach the perch, or the turn point for the base to final turn, we can see the turn radius required for a 90-degree turn. But what we can't really see is just how much the winds are blowing us away from the runway. We need to adjust the turn rate. Okay. Sometime in the 50s, USAF figured it out and started doing 360-degree overhead approaches with a continuous final turn. This is a graphic of the T-37 traffic pattern, and you can see the relevant points throughout the turn. It's pretty cool. It's what we do now. But somewhere in here, we have to figure out where when to turn on final. During this whole process, we have been doing a normal descent, and it's really hard to judge whether we're on a proper glide path, or we're high, or we're low. We end up shallowing our bank because the winds are indeed pushing us away from the runway. And we noticed that we're going flat on our descent profile, as you can see in the video right here. Next up is a curve pattern. We're going to do a curve pattern after we finish this one off. And we're going to press this one a little bit forward. Need a little extra power running this into the final. So other than that, pretty nice standard rectangular pattern. Here we have a curve pattern, and it's going to be initiated much closer to the runway than the first rectangular. Just for kicks, I put the FAA's graphic for an engine-out approach. The curious thing is how it almost exactly matches the 360-degree overhead curve final turn we're talking about. I guess that's the validation that it's an efficient way to fly a visual approach. So we're going to vary our perch or base to final turn point based on the winds. We use 45 degrees over our shoulder or 30, depends. You want to beat a ball, gang. A quick note about turn radius. In general, we want to fly the same airspeed around the turn. As you can see that graphic just then, this means that we have to vary our bank angle to control our turn radius. This is exactly how overshooting winds often result in a disaster for GA pilots. When faced with wind forcing an overshoot, the pilot who maintains airspeed and bank angle but increases G is courting an accelerated stall and departure at low altitude, often with a fatal result. As you can see, varying the bank angle will result in a smaller turn radius at your present speed. Also for kicks, I've included the equation to calculate the turn radius for you guys who want to be specific and accurate. So approaching the perch, we begin to think about turn radius and bank angle. And throughout the turn, we can watch how the runway is moving, what our geometry is, and what our descent rate is, and we can adjust our bank angle. Here the winds are pushing us away from the runway, so we shallow our bank, and that allows us to calculate visually the whole turn on the final. And they arrive at the same place, and they happen faster, and I think much easier to detect what's going on with the airplane. This is a pattern at a different airport with winds basically coming from the same direction. Different day, winds had shifted 180 degrees, basically. So what we're going to look at here is the final turn throughout this pattern, and we're going to adjust for winds. So this first part here, well, the winds are pushing us away, but we start to shallow the turn. When we realize that, we're going to drive over to the final with a bit shallower bank. We're still on the turn, but a very shallow one. And then as we get closer, we can see the geometry working out, what's our descent rate, and combine that with our turn radius, and we can line up on final, and everything's looking really pretty. This is a good one. Hey, let's thank Virgil Tapman for those patterns. That last one was really nice, by the way. The rectangular pattern was graphic, ending in a very flat approach. It happens a lot. Not only was the curve pattern faster, but you can judge your energy throughout the turn, and rather than after each turn point. The last curve pattern was nicely flown, and you can readily see the impact of winds on the turn and the descent rate, so judging the corrections that need to be made is going to be much easier. Traffic patterns are a dynamic maneuver and lead directly to whether you'll have a good landing or a so-so one. If you'd like to explore curve patterns more, I'd say, well, find a fighter guy, or you can come fly with me. You can always watch more of the videos on Flywire online as well, because after all, well, you can learn anything by watching YouTube, right? If you want to keep up to date, hit the subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time on Flywire.